you need the community. So it's not just you and your spouse facing each other. It's like now you and your spouse facing this child, and you desperately need someone in the world, people, your family, close companionships outside of your marriage to support you. And so that's important. And people forget that. They know that they need it somehow intuitively, but they don't know how to get it. And it can make us very depressed. It can make us very just really sad and depressed and lonely. And we think, but my spouse is not giving me this, so something must be wrong. But truly it's not. It's because you and your spouse are supposed to be hand in hand going out into the world and building something together, a life, and doing something more than just navel gazing or, gazing at each other. Hello and welcome to Healing Broken Trust Podcast. I'm Morgan Robinson.
And I'm Brad Robinson.
And we are excited to be here with you today. We promise that we have not fallen off the face of the earth. We have been behind the scenes creating more programs and workshops and content for you to really truly help you heal broken trust once and for all. So it has required us to take some time to do that. And so we didn't have a lot of time to do podcast episodes, but we do have a lot for you on our website. So go check that out, healingbrokentrust.com. But today we have some important content to talk about that Brad wanted to interject and talk about right now. So what's the question on everybody's mind, Brad?
Well, a common question that people ask after they've been betrayed is, how did my spouse feel about me during their affair? Were you thinking of me? Did you still love me? What was going through your mind?
Yeah.
Did you still love me? Were you thinking of me when you were doing this? How did you feel about me when you were having this affair? I saw the text messages that you sent. I discovered it through text message or somebody had told me. I felt like we were close. Sometimes it's like I could see that we weren't close. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's we were going on vacations. We were making love on a regular basis. There was no obvious sign that there was something wrong in our marriage. Other times it's like, there were some real signs in our marriage that things weren't right. And I knew it wasn't right. And so no matter the kind of situation you may be in, and obviously we don't know the details of your situation, but we want to talk about where these situations can overlap. Mm-hmm. The commonalities that we see from people at our workshops, the people that we work with one-on-one. And what I've noticed is that generally people do love their spouse, even though they may be unfaithful. It takes a long time to fall out of love with somebody that you're married to. It may take a little bit of time with somebody that you're dating. It may take some time if you really love them when you're having an affair. But to be married to somebody and go through that process, that courtship process, engagement process, to get married and then have children with them, that can take years to unravel, to fall out of love with somebody. And so you don't really see maybe the evidence of that love if people have been distant for a while until there's a disruption. Yeah. Until that person is in pain that you hurt. You don't always see the effects of that attachment bond. There's some researchers who talk about that. You don't often see what they say is you don't often see the attachment bond between two people until it's disrupted. And what I've noticed is I've had people come to our workshops and they'll talk about feeling kind of burnout in their marriage, not really invested, feeling like their spouse doesn't love them anymore. And then they see their spouse in pain and it wakes them up. They get out of that affair fog and they wake up and they'll be totally engaged because they're like, I do love you. I didn't think I did anymore, but I see you hurting and it has awakened things inside of me that I haven't felt in a long time for you.
And I imagine that can be true. That could be true for either the betrayer or the unfaithful, or the unfaithful spouse, or the hurt spouse.
Yeah. I think it's true. I've done this enough where I've seen all kinds of situations. There's a lot of patterns that are very similar, a lot of commonalities. Like we've done an episode of the podcast before where we talk about your situation isn't really that unique, even though your story might be a little different than somebody else's. The underlying patterns are very much the same from situation to situation. Now, did they love you? Most of the time, I would say yes. There are times where if it's an exit affair, like I am leaving you, I am done, but I need almost like security to help me leave, or I need financial security to help me leave. So I may look for somebody else. So I may start a relationship with somebody else. There may not be, quote unquote, love there. It's an exit affair. It's very planned. It's very strategic. I'm wanting out. Other times, people may have an affair where they still want out of the marriage, but they're now torn because of that disruption to the attachment bond, and they very much feel this love for their spouse, and they feel this love for the affair partner, and they don't know what to do, so they're torn between the two. They were committed to being done, committed to being out. I am charging full steam ahead, but then, oh my gosh, I have these feelings for you. I hurt you. I see you broken. And they don't know how to manage those. It's very weird, but it's almost like when a long time ago, I remember when The Bachelor, I guess it's still on TV, it's popular, but I remember thinking, like, how can somebody struggle to pick between these different women?
Oh, on The Bachelor?
On The Bachelor. Or I guess The Bachelorette. And they would say, I have feelings for them, for him, for her,
And they're crying on TV about these
and they don't know.
people, random strangers, basically.
And so that kind of situation can happen to somebody who gets caught in an affair, and they really will feel confused. They'll really struggle with that. And maybe previously to their spouse finding out, they were really dead set on being done. But when they see their spouse in pain, that bond that's been there, maybe it's been hidden, or they haven't really nurtured it, might be a better way to say it. They haven't really fed it or nurtured it. It comes very much alive, after there's a crisis or disruption to it.
So, Brad, you mentioned that people often, they still care about their spouse, but what in the world is going on in their mind when they are engaging in these activities, I guess? Yeah,
when they're engaging in an affair. So I would say that they still love their spouse. They may not necessarily be in love with their spouse, quote unquote.
Like those feelings are not being strengthened or really worked on.
Well, those feelings, there's some interesting research on this. Like, those in-love feelings are really only meant to be there in the beginning to help two people become a couple, to help two people become one. And it's not really practical long-term for people to stay in that infatuated, in-love feeling state long-term. Because what love leads to is procreation. It leads to physical intimacy. It leads to sex. What sex
friendship.
Leads to? Well, later it leads to friendship and companionship. But generally it starts with, romantic attraction, in-love feelings. And so as time goes on, those feelings it'll be supported by a deep sense of companionship. An attachment bond gets developed. And so that in-love feeling doesn't remain permanent. And we highlight that, or we emphasize that, like, well, you didn't love me, or you didn't feel it, but you felt in love with them. It's actually really, really, really shallow. There's no commitment there. What the commitment to is the feeling, what I get from you, how I feel, how you make me feel, what I get out of that. But true love is
very selfish.
Yeah, it's extremely selfish, and it's kind of part of nature's process, but people confuse that with what love is because it feels good. It feels great to fall in love. If you're lonely, it lifts you out of your loneliness. It takes you out of your depression. And people confuse that, and they think that that's something that long-term
is supposed to be there.
That's supposed to be there 20 years later or 30 years later. And really, nature designed it. The course is that helps you become a couple and to bond to each other. But what happens is that you have to develop, because all your thoughts are revolving around this person that you're with. Nothing would get done. Nobody would ever be productive at work. Nothing would ever happen. Nothing would ever get done. And so what ends up happening is those feelings will morph into a deep sense of companionship, deep sense of friendship with your spouse. And that is far more powerful, what people have with that. And that's probably what most of you who are listening to our podcast right now have with your spouse, is more of a companionship, deep sense of, companionship like that, than this in-love feeling, which is really more superficial and how do you make me feel.
I've heard somebody describe it like this: when you first become a couple, you're looking towards each other, you're gazing into each other's eyes, you're really focused on, this love between you, this excitement, this joy. And then once you become that couple and it becomes solid and it becomes strong, you're no longer looking like chest to chest at each other. You're looking out to the world hand in hand, side by side, so that you can go out and, build something together, a life together, children together, a family together, that your community can then, support you, but also you can support your community. In the beginning, in a new relationship, you need the community to support you, to strengthen you, to guide you, to help you. I remember just having a child in the very beginning. It was a shock. My whole identity changes. Your whole identity changes. Everything about your life is completely different after having children, and you need the community. So it's not just you and your spouse facing each other. It's like now you and your spouse facing this child, and you desperately need someone in the world, people, your family, close companionships outside of your marriage to support you. And so that's important. And people forget that. They know that they need it somehow intuitively, but they don't know how to get it. And it can make us very depressed. It can make us very just really sad and depressed and lonely. And we think, but my spouse is not giving me this, so something must be wrong. But truly it's not. It's because you and your spouse are supposed to be hand in hand going out into the world and building something together, a life, and doing something more than just navel gazing or, gazing at each other. Exactly. Yeah. And so, anyways, I thought it's really great.
No, Morgan, that's actually really profound what you're saying, because where attachment starts is with a mother's bond with its infant and the infant's bond with its mother. And what that is when it's an infant is gazing into the infant's eyes and the infant gazing back into its mother's eyes. So there's a gazing, like when the infant is nursing. Mm-hmm. And that is the oxytocin being released in the brain of the infant and then the mother. And that's almost like that falling in love stage. But what's next is that child becomes a toddler. And what toddlers do and what we do in our romantic relationships is we no longer are gazing. We're doing what attachment theory says is exploration. We're meant to explore. And that's where that companionship comes in. Where there's still a bond there, a deep bond. But that bond is meant to support launching. It's meant to support exploration. It's meant to, to strive after our dreams, passions, and goals as adults. Mm-hmm. And so what you're saying is really important. I want to get back to your original question, though, which is, so yes, they probably did love their spouse, but as far as being in love, I would say probably not. But the question is were they thinking of their spouse during this?
But just to interject slightly, but that doesn't mean that they were necessarily loving the affair partner either. Maybe they had in-love feelings, but maybe they weren't loving them, because love truly isn't what you do for me and how you make me feel. It's about wanting the best for the other person. It's willing their good. It's really actually being selfless instead of selfish. And in that position, they're not being selfless. They're not looking out at the world and saying, how can we do great things together? They're really thinking, how can you make me feel less depressed, less, sad? And really, it's just a perpetual cycle. They're not going to get out of that sadness or depression. It's just going to continue and continue and continue, because they can't open themselves up and be giving of themselves in the way that we need as human beings. Like that is our life. That's our goal. Our goal is to really give of ourselves and to say at the end of our life, I really took, life by the horns and became this great, giver of myself. And I'm, what is the thing? At the end, did I do all of the things? Did I give of myself, or did I keep all of those things to myself? Did I waste my talents and energy? And so no, there's not love for that person. It's really more selfish. So anyways, I interjected. You were saying, what were they thinking about their spouse in that time?
Well, most people are not even thinking of their spouse.
Yeah.
So what I mean by that is they do two things. They minimize the danger or the threat of what they're doing, and then they maximize the potential payoff or reward. So they minimize the danger by thoughts such as, nobody will find out, nobody's going to get hurt, and I've got it under control. Nobody's going to find out, nobody's going to get hurt because nobody will find out, and I've got it under control.
It's a delusion.
It is a delusion, but that's what everybody says to themselves that does stupid stuff.
Yeah.
I've got it under control. Nobody will really get hurt. That's where so many things spiral out of control. Mm-hmm. It's thinking, and it's just it's across the board human nature thing.
Right.
We minimize the danger of something but we also inflate our ability to handle it.
Mm-hmm.
And then we maximize the reward. We think about the payoff. We think about feeling wanted, or the feeling of being in love, or the chase. People will focus on that, and so they're not necessarily thinking about their spouse.
And so that's why, as you were saying earlier, that's why when they are confronted with this painful reality that what they have done has hurt their spouse, that's when they're sort of usually awakened by that. And it can cause them to do one of a few things, but hopefully that it causes them to then say, oh my gosh, I really do love you. Oh no, I've hurt you. Oh no, what did I do? And then start to seek out solutions and seek out answers and find remorse. And sometimes they have shame. And that shame can get out of hand if it's not dealt with appropriately. But it's also kind of healthy to have shame in a sense. What do you think, Brad?
Yeah, shame can be healthy in the sense that
it causes you to turn away from what you're doing.
Yeah, turn away from what you're doing. But usually shame, the only time it's really productive is in expressing remorse, in expressing an apology. But usually people feel so bad about what they've done, they'll just continue to hide. They'll continue to... So shame is really not that productive. What's more productive is guilt. Mm-hmm. And you really don't want people to get stuck in shame. It's healthy and necessary for an extent, but what's more productive is guilt, because when people feel guilty, they'll engage in reparative behavior where they're trying to make amends. But when people get stuck in shame, they're going to hide. They're not going to try to make it right. They're going to make it about them. They're self-focused. Mm. And that really becomes bad in the affair recovery or affair healing process, because I'm making it about me after I just betrayed you, after I just hurt you.
Yeah, and that really requires a level of humility, because, people will say, oh, they'll just label them, oh, you're a narcissist, you only care about yourself. But the truth is that is actually a muscle that people need to learn to flex and to be aware of. Oh, I'm making it about myself again. I need to step outside of myself, because that's that whole idea of like, I'm going to love you. And that means that I'm not going to, think to myself, how are you going to help me? How are you going to be the tool that makes me feel less depressed? No, okay. So there are ways to shift your mindset and shift your thought process away from self-centeredness and into a place where, okay, I'm not perfect. I've got to have this level of humility, and I've got to ask probing questions to help my spouse. And so if that's you, if there's a situation where you are maybe engaging in more narcissistic, selfish behavior, it's not the end. It doesn't mean that's who you are forever. You can still heal that part of you and still change that. You need some help.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. So Morgan, just to kind of wrap up with a few other thoughts. We mentioned the exit affair, and when this is where they're having the affair on the way out, maybe they're even engaging in a relationship to help them leave. They're more concerned with security, financial security, so they'll get into a new relationship so they can afford to leave, in a sense. People can have a revenge affair. You've cheated on me, you've hurt me, I'm stuck in healing, I'm not getting any better, I'll just go have my own affair. Mm. So in situations like that, there could be love there, but there, it's less likely there's going to be like love there. It's more about vengeance. It's more about, sometimes even hurting the other person, especially with a revenge affair. A lot of people may love their spouse, but most of the people who end up being unfaithful, especially if they're more of an avoider type, where they just avoid emotions, avoid feelings, their main tool to help them avoid is compartmentalization. So they may love their spouse, and of course they're not thinking about their spouse when they do this. They're not thinking about the effects of this on their spouse. They're not thinking about what's going to happen and how their spouse is really going to feel, because they're compartmentalizing. They're thinking about what they want, and they're minimizing the effects of this on their spouse. Mm-hmm. They're minimizing the danger this is going to create for their family. And then there's the burnout pursuer. And a pursuer, they are somebody who wants closeness and connection in the relationship, but they get burned out when they begin to feel like, okay, you're not here for me. You don't really initiate. It's always me chasing you. I'm always the one thinking about the relationship. But they really get burned out when they get hurt, and then there's no the wound isn't healing. And so they start to grieve the relationship. They start to almost, really they're giving up on the relationship, or at least looking to the relationship to get needs met. And for them, an affair is about being desired and being wanted. And a lot of their affair is going to be, they're more likely to have an emotional affair. Whereas somebody who's an avoider, it's going to be mainly about physical pleasure. It's about more of the sex, and it's about using a person for sex. And of course, those are generalities. There can be differences. There can be overlaps. An avoider can have an emotional affair, but more likely it's going to be just using the person, maybe saying things to that person that may sound like it's emotional, just to get that person's attention to reciprocate. I've got to say this to reel you in. So I got to make you think I'm into you emotionally, or I want a relationship with you, or I'm ready to leave my family for you. But the reality is no, I'm just saying the things I need to say so I can get you into me and have your attention. Whereas somebody who's more of a pursuer will probably say those things and mean what they say and have genuine feelings for the affair partner. And when somebody has an emotional affair like that, for them, especially if they were burnt out and had their own set of issues with the relationship or marriage prior to their affair, they can still engage back into the marriage and have a happy marriage, but they're going to be more cautious in doing so. They're going to be more afraid in engaging again. And they can be happy, and you can work through all these things, but they're going to be more reluctant because they in a sense had their trust broken first. Not maybe in the same way as an affair, but they had their trust broken first, and so they're going to be just more cautious. Now that I've done this to you, can you really forgive me? You're going to make it all about you, or are you going to try to meet me halfway and kind of work on our marriage? Or are you just going to stay focused on your pain and what you want? And so those are situations that we work with couples on at our workshops. Please come check us out at healingbrokentrust.com.
Yes, for sure. And that's interesting too, something that you just said about sometimes couples worry that it's just going to be about affair recovery and that we're not going to actually work on the things in the marriage. But that's not the case. Sometimes you have to work on the affair first, and sometimes it has to be the marriage first, and sometimes it's a combination of both of them at the same time. So that was a good question that somebody asked a while back.
Yeah. Well, and if this is your first time listening to our podcast, here's what I would encourage you to do. I would listen to the episode 69, I believe, where we talk about the Healing Broken Trust Triangle. You have to address the affair or the major event that just happened, this crisis. And you've also got to deal with other relationship issues outside of this. And then you've got to deal with the trauma from what's happened. And we deep dive into that. And then we have 2 recent episodes where we talk about like 20 things that the unfaithful spouse thinks but doesn't know how to share or say to the hurt partner. And then 20 things that the hurt partner is thinking but doesn't know how to say to the unfaithful spouse. If this is the first time listening, I would listen to those 3.
Yeah.
And then I would listen to, I think it's episode 7, which is why do we fight or avoid each other? And you'll have a deep dive into negative cycles.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for that, because I think a lot of times people don't know where to start or what to do. But check us out at healingbrokentrust.com. We would love the opportunity to meet with you in person and to care for your relationship right alongside you. Anything else you want to say?
Thank you, guys. Hope to see you and meet you in person soon.
All right.
The workshop for me, I was reluctant at first to come to the workshop. I was thinking, this is 3 years later. I've read a lot of books. I've been through other workshops, and I thought, if I go to this, is it going to make a difference? How is it going to change where we've been, what we've gone through, and that hopeless despair feeling? I was just reluctant, and I wasn't sure that anything really was going to help at this point, because after 3 years of working at this, we were caught in such a negative cycle that the workshop, reluctantly, as I came, I realized, oh my God, this is really exactly what we need. And everything that we covered reflected where I was at. And I could identify with it, and I could see exactly where I fit in that. I understood my spouse better. I understood why her reaction to me and why we were caught in that negative cycle continued. We were unable to address the trauma, and the workshop really works smoothly, efficiently, and works right through and gets right to the point that above and beyond just your marriage and all that's happened is this issue of trauma in your life. And the workshop covers that, and it really went very smoothly, and I came out of it feeling 100% better, that I understood my wife, I understood myself better, why I did what I did, and I really was able to let go of shame.